A scroll animated timeline, sticky icons, fading content, and a progress bar that grows as you scroll. No JavaScript. I'm Chloe. Welcome to Mosaic in Minutes. Let's build it. I've got this section open here with some content already in place, but the star of the show is going to be this container right here. For now, it's just a plain container, nothing fancy going on. So let's get building. From the Add panel, I'll drop in a rows element. This will contain all our timeline entries. First up, on the Style panel, I'll increase the row gap. Let's go with 3XL. That's 120 pixels. Next, let's scroll down a bit and set the position to relative. This will be important for the progress bar itself. And also change the overflow to clip. Now, and the order here matters, I'm going to build the content first, and only then the progress bar in the middle. From the Add panel, I'll drop in a new grid element. Then, on the Style panel on the right, scroll up a bit and add 3 new columns. For the first one, I'll go with 400 fraction. Same for the third. And for the middle, which will be the spacer for our progress bar, I'll go with 200 fraction. One more thing here. I'll set items X to stretch, so the content spans the available space. All right, the container for our content is ready. Time for the content itself. First column, I'll drop in a rows element from the Add panel. Into this rows element, I'll add a button, then into this rows still, a text element, and one more. I'll just duplicate the existing one. Let's tighten up the spacing. On the Style panel, I'll set the row gap to XS, that's 12 pixels. Much more comfortable. Next, let's style the button. I'll change its element class using the toolbar. I'll go with badge, secondary, and S. That gives us this tiny little button, which will be our badge for the year. Speaking of which, let's update the text. I'll go with 2012 for this one. Now for this text here, I'll change it to a heading 4 and replace the content. And for this one, I'll change it to a paragraph with size M and replace the content here too. Awesome. The first column is done content-wise. I'll close it in the navigator and select the grid. Then from the Add panel, I'll drop in a new rows element. This will be the container for our icon. I'll quickly add an icon from the Add panel. Double-click and select an icon from the library. I want this home icon. Great, but it still looks a little sad. Let's brighten it up. I'll change its class to icon box, secondary, XL. This adds some padding, a background, and equal border radius. Nothing crazy, but much better. Next, on the Style panel, I'll set its align to center. Then scroll down a bit. Change the position to sticky, and set top to 50 viewport height. Now, if we check it out, you can already see the icon starting to act like it's part of the progress. It locks to the center of the viewport as you scroll. That's the trick we'll be using for this timeline. Pretty nice, right? And if you want more Mosaic tips like this, subscribe. We post these regularly, and there's a lot more coming. And with that, the second column content is also ready. One more to go. Select the grid, then from the Add panel, drop in an image. Double-click to open the media library, and select the image. And there it is. The content is ready. Now, a nice touch I want to add. I want this row to fade in as it scrolls into view. We can do that with the Interaction system. Head to the Interaction tab and add a new scroll into View Interaction. First, on the Interaction tab right here, let's set the end to when, bottom of the page. Back on the Action tab, I'll add a new action for opacity. For initial, I'll go with 25%. I want it slightly visible from the start, and 100% for 2. All right, let's play it. And it fades into full. Nice. But right now, this only works when the element enters the viewport. So let's go to the Out of View tab at the top, duplicate the existing action, and change the 100% to value back to 25%. Awesome, that one's done. Next, the icon in the middle. I want it to change colors when it's in view. First, let's exit out of the current interaction and add a new one on the icon. Same type, scroll into View. On the Interaction tab again, set the End When, bottom of the page. Back on the Action tab, I'll add a new action for text color. Since the icon uses current color, it reads from the text color property. So we can change its color just like this. I'll go with Accent 1. Then I'll add another property, background color. I'll set this to Accent 1 too, but from the background group. Quick preview. It works, but it feels a little slow. I'll just drag this tween on the timeline and reduce its duration to 300 milliseconds. Let's do the same for Out of View. I'll duplicate the actions and change the colors back. Accent 3 for the text color from the text group, and Accent 3 for the background from the background group. And that's the interactions done. Let's close the interaction panel and save our changes. Now let's do something smart. Let's turn this grid into a component. That way, if we need to change something about this design later, all instances update automatically. No repeating the same change everywhere. I'll name it Timeline Content, Left, set it to be a part, and keep it uncategorized for now. And now we've got an instance of the component here. I want 6 of these in this design. I could just go ahead and duplicate this 5 more times, or use the keyboard shortcut like this. But I want every other entry to have the text on the right side instead. We could make another component for that. But then, we're back to managing 2 separate components. And that's not the right call. So let's delete those duplicates. And from the Add panel, I'll drop in a div. Into that div, I'll add a component element and select the timeline content component we just made. Now watch this. In Mosaic, you can include components inside other components. So I can turn this div into a new component right here. I'll call it Timeline Content. Right. Set it to part, keep it uncategorized. Now, why did we even do this? Well, I can enter this component, and inside it, there's an instance of the left component. I can enter that instance and simply reorder the items by dragging them to a different position, just like this. And now the layout is flipped. But here's the real reason we did it this way. The core styles are shared. I'll leave this scope and open the original component. If I change something, like the heading's text color, you can see it updates in the right component as well. 1 component, 2 layouts, 0 double effort. Now let's put it all together. I'll leave this component and enter the right one. Let's update the content. First, I'll change the image. Then the year. Let's go with 2014. And the text here. And the last piece, the icon. And this one is done. Using the breadcrumbs at the top, I'll exit the component. And just to keep things clear, let's rename the instances. I'll call the first one left and the second one right, so we know which is which. I want 3 of each, so let's duplicate the first one and move it just below the other. I'll repeat this a few more times until we have 6 blocks total. Now, you already know how to update the content, so I won't bore you with that. I'll skip ahead a little. And this is what I have. Nothing crazy. Different texts, images, and icons for each entry. And you can already see that this acts just like a proper timeline, just without the progress bar. Speaking of which, time to actually add it. I'll select the rows that contains our content blocks. Then from the Add panel, I'll drop in a div element. I'll drag it to the top and rename it to Progress Wrapper. On the Style panel on the right, I'll set a line to center. Next, scroll a bit down. and add a background color. I'll go with primary. That's just white. It still looks a little wide, so let's fix that by setting a width. I'll go with 4 pixels. Next, set the height to 130%. And then change the position to absolute. This is exactly why we set the rows to relative earlier. And lastly, set top to 0 and bottom to -30%. Now into this wrapper, I'll add a div from the Add panel. This will be the actual progress bar, so let's rename it to Progress Bar. On the Style panel, scroll up a bit. I'm going to pull this bar up using a negative margin. I'll set it to -50 VH, which equals the full height of the progress bar itself. You'll see why that matters in a second. Next, set a background color. I'll go with Accent 1. Scroll down to the Size section. For the width, I'll enter 100%, so it fills the same space as the progress wrapper. And for the height, 50 viewport height. Last piece, the position. Set it to sticky and anchor it to the top. And there it is. The progress bar appears just like that. Let's save our changes and check everything together in the preview. And now, as I scroll, we can see the entire timeline in action. The bar grows, the icons switch colors, the content fades in and out, all of it working together. And that's it. A fully functional timeline section, built entirely in Mosaic. If this helped, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and join our community. Links are in the description. See you in the next one.